Alright guys, I actually have some slight updates on the Lauren Handy situation that I mentioned in my video yesterday. The woman who's gotten in some trouble because she had 5 fetuses in her house. And I wanted to do an update already because even though it's not a huge update, it will hopefully clarify some of the legality of the situation and clear up some rumors that I've been seeing getting spread. So first off, let's talk about the rumors. On TikTok especially, I've seen a rumor floating around that Lauren Handy was not the homeowner, that she was renting her home, and that her landlord was a lawyer who is in some way linked to Donald Trump. I have yet to find any solid evidence on any of this. I found no solid evidence on whether or not she's the homeowner or a renter. I couldn't find any evidence of who her landlord was or who he was linked to. I couldn't find anything on that stuff. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's untrue, but as of right now, if you're hearing things like that, take it with a grain of salt because as of this moment in time, we don't know anything. And frankly, I don't honestly see how who her landlord is would have any bearing on this situation. I know people love dunking on Trump, and fuck knows he makes it easy, but it's not helping anyone in this situation to just spread rumors and misinformation. So please, if you see something like that, either report it or let the people in that person's comments know that as of right now, there's no proof of anything like that because people are gonna get really screwed up and confused. Now on to the stuff that is actually proven, that is an actual update on the case. So the first update actually has to do with why she was in trouble in the first place. Now this is not the reason that they actually went into her home. They went into her home because someone actually called in a potential biohazard. This is about how in October of 2020, she and 8, I think, other people had called in falsely claiming that she was a woman in need of an abortion, and then they basically stormed the clinic, harassed people. One nurse ended up getting injured and stuff. It's that case. So what was going on? I'm looking at an article from WUSA 9, which is an extension of ABC News, and it says about that specific situation. While inside, one of Handy's co-defendants, Jonathan Darnell, allegedly live-streamed the blockade, saying at one point, "We have people intervening physically with their bodies to prevent women from entering the clinic to murder their children." I love when these people are arrogant and stupid enough to live stream what they're doing, and then they always try in the future to argue that that's not what actually happened, even though everyone saw it happen. If convicted, which honestly it looks highly probable that they will be because there is physical video evidence of this event happening, Handy and her co-defendants each face up to 11 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to $350,000. So she was already in a boatload of trouble even before this whole 5 fetuses in her house thing came about because, like I said, there's video evidence. It's not like they can say that wasn't us. They're not even trying to say it wasn't us. They're proud of what they did, so they're basically admitting to it already. So she was already facing potentially 11 years in prison and a $350,000 fine for what she had already done when she was harassing that clinic. Now, the other interesting update in this article involving the actual 5 fetuses found in her home story is it says WUSA 9 reporters were outside a Capitol Hill row home occupied by Handy when DC Police Homicide and Forensic Services detectives took evidence out in red biohazard bags and coolers from the row house's basement, which that's just freaking creepy. Handy declined to speak on camera, but told WUSA 9 she expected the raid to happen sooner or later. She also declined to say what was in the coolers, saying only that people would freak out when they heard. I've heard on other news sources already, since like the day that this was all found, that she said people would freak out when they realized what was in her basement. This was the first time I heard that she just flat out said, I knew this would happen sooner or later, so she wasn't even actively trying to hide what she was doing. she knew this was going to happen. She wasn't fussed about it. And I'm wondering if part of that is because she was already facing jail time for something else that she'd already done. So she was like, screw it, it's whatever. Now, speaking of jail time, obviously there are a lot of people saying, well, what can she get charged with? Because technically speaking, when you look into a lot of different news sources on this story right now, she didn't do anything bad to the fetuses. They had been previously aborted in accordance with the law. So people are asking, well, if she can't get charged for having, done anything, in those terms, what can she actually get charged with? And I found an interesting Reddit thread. Now, keep in mind, Reddit is not the be-all, end-all of information. It's kind of like Wikipedia. Again, you've got to take things on here with a grain of salt. But it's interesting because someone said, I don't, even know if she's going to be able to be charged with anything because they weren't considered human beings, living human beings, so it's not considered necessarily a dead body. Someone says, the general consensus seems to be that they were taken from a clinic either to give them a proper burial to save them from the evils of stem cell research or to use them for shock value in some sort of pro-life propaganda. And someone else said, so by her logic, she just stole the equivalent of 5 human bodies from a morgue. What's the sentence for that again? And someone actually added a link here about DC's laws on something like this. And part B in that link says, upon conviction, the violator of any provision of this section shall be guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment in the custody of the Department of Corrections for a term not more than 7 years, by a fine not exceeding $8,000, or by both such fine and imprisonment. So it's not going to be nearly as lengthy or as severe a sentence as the one she got for what she did at the clinic, but she's potentially going to be facing 2 different lawsuits now, 2 different criminal cases, because that's the thing. They can't just bring her into the courtroom and try her for both at the same time. This is going to be very, very long and very arduous. They're going to have to first take care of the potential 11 years in prison sentence for everything she did at the clinic. And once all that is said and done, which remember, this is multiple days of court hearings. And it's not just her involved, it's 8 other people who are also going to have to be spoken to potentially this year. I don't know if they're going to be tried separately or not. And then afterwards, they have to have the sentencing trial. So that's already going to be long enough as it is. And then after that's finished, they can go into this one where she's potentially got another 7 years. I mean, this idiot is potentially facing almost 20 years in prison for the nonsense that she's decided to dedicate her life to. And what does she have to show for it? Nobody changed their minds about abortion. Anyone who is going to get one got one anyway. All she's successfully done is destroyed her own future and the future of her friends and followers. So, as I mentioned in my first video about this, please be careful who you're associating yourselves with. Understand that pro-choice does not mean pro-killing babies. Please actually speak to people who are pro-choice with an open mind. Listen to what they have to say, because most of you just completely misunderstand what it even is. And make sure that if you are trying to associate yourself with pro-life people, that they are not like this. People like this are going to do nothing but hurt other people. She's causing more harm to living human beings doing what she's doing than any fetus she could have saved. But that's all I've got for the update for right now, and I will see all of you guys again if there's another one.